It's 1 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. My name's Keck. If people don't know me, I'm the chairman of this Comprehensive Master Plan Advisory Committee. To my left is Nikki Choyce. She's our vice chairman. We have Patricia McCarthy as a member. Jody Latham is a member. Jody's actually works for Cooper Communities out of Rogers. We have Claasen, Pam Avila, Clint Blackman, he's actually a non-resident member out of Dallas, and Rolland White, who's been around for about as long as I have been doing this planning stuff. At the end of the table, we have Buddy Dixon from the board and Stephanie Heffer from the staff. They're our liaisons. So hopefully you caught all those names, you know who we are, the voice, you catch all those names. We are short one member today, but we'll get going here. Okay, first thing is to approve the agenda. Any comments on the agenda? Okay, if I don't have any comments on it, all in favor of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Okay, everybody have a chance to look at April 12th minutes. Any comments? Corrections? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Buddy, board liaison, I just asked you, we've got a lot of stuff on the agenda. Anything you need to say? You know, keep it within, you know.
I promise. First of all, I just want to thank y'all for taking the time and effort to do what you're going to be faced with for the future of our village. And I want to thank all you people in the audience for coming, and it's encouraging that you're here. I hope we all learn a lot. The only other thing I would like to say that in your big book on the where it talks about on page 20 the different committees, it has been decided that the Budget and Finance Committee will not be a subcommittee of your committee. It's going to be the finance, and everything's going to be another full committee. Liz has done a bunch of research and everything, and the board has kind of accepted the fact that that really needs to be a separate committee. You will have somebody from your committee on that group, and that's one you won't have to worry with. That's all I have to say.
So all we have to do is appoint someone from CMP committee to sit on the finance committee.
Yeah, and that'll come up after it's put together.
Okay. Any questions of Buddy? So we'll have to go back and look, as we look at some of the recommendations that are in there. And Buddy, I'd ask, do we have a distinction made between budget and finance and revenue growth? Because if you read some of the recommendations, they talk about revenue growth.
Right.
And is budget finance going to handle that, or do we still have to deal with revenue growth?
I cannot answer that, but I'll get you an answer.
That's where we need an answer, because down the road, we have tasks out there, revenue and growth.
I'm pretty sure that stays in this committee.
Okay.
Right.
So
The revenue growth
I think
component
so.
is part of this group.
Right.
Stephanie?
The only thing I would mention is that the ACC and P&I departments are working on an abbreviated version of the protective covenants as they relate primarily to residential permitting and new homes. So I know there's an awful lot of information in there that is more development or authoritarian type things. Authority level. Anyway, so we're working on that. In fact, we've rolled out a revised permit form today, along with as sort of like I said, an abbreviated section that really just deals with the very specific things that you're applying for on a daily basis within the confines of our P&I structure. So, and I know that relates back to this because the covenants are part of the document. So.
Any questions of Stephanie?
And we've had 22 new home permits since April of this year, so that was through April of this year. 22. I wish.
I'm wishing. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's all.
But I'll take 20.
And so that basically the covenants will remove all the items that I think we discussed earlier that
The covenants
are incorrect.
Yeah, it's one of the things I want to visit with you about, some of the things that we're looking at making changes to, or making, yes, edits to, but the vast majority of what the people need to know is yes, going to be in
other questions, Stephanie? Okay, before we start into old business, I would just like to throw out two numbers to the committee. The first number is 271. The second number is 16. Does anybody have an idea what 271 is? And it's not new home starts. Anybody want to take a guess what 271 is? I'll tell you this right now. I quizzed the two at the end of the table. They didn't.
We
They didn't
failed
know either.
miserably, actually.
So, anyone, no one wants to take a guess? No?
Maintenance project, we have to do.
That'd probably be a good guess, but that's not it. That's a good guess.
Okay.
So 271. Anybody in the audience? 271. No one wants to bet on that, huh? Okay. You go in this document, the CMP, and it's not page 271. There are 271 recommendations made in the CMP. 271 different recommendations. Does anybody have an idea what 16 is? It's another number. 16 of those relate to the town center. 255 other recommendations are in the CMP. Why I say this is we get so wrapped around the town center and how bad the CMP is. There's 255 other recommendations that this committee has to deal with before we even, go look at those 16. So I use it as a preference, since I wasn't here at the first meeting, to kind of say, here's how I envision this, to say, there's a lot of work. And there's a lot of good recommendations in there, in those 255. And so this committee, as we go out there, I would hope we start, moving forward on those 255. So, and that's, we're supposed to be monitoring them, helping them along. So please don't get wrapped up in the 16. Let's get wrapped up in the 255 first, because a lot of that work has to be done. So does anybody have any questions? Do you understand what I'm saying? This document, we get all focused on chapter 4, and we get chaptered on the town center. Let's focus on all the other stuff that's in it. So I wanted to put that out as kind of where I look at the CMP. And for the people, some of you have been here a while, know that I've been doing this planning stuff for the village since I got here in 2010. So there's a lot of stuff we have to do. So, okay. Old business. We wanted to talk about communication. And I think, Clint, you had some concerns about communication. Well, Stephanie wanted to bring something on communication too.
Just out of the last meeting, we talked a bit about how best to, emailing and, frequency, all that kind of stuff. So just
Okay.
on the agenda for.
And I think we just need to go through and make sure everybody's getting it. I know Nikki didn't get a couple of the email, and check email. Has everybody else been getting them? Did everybody else get the minutes and get the agenda that was sent out?
I think what I'd ask about is if we could get a separate email, because my email address is also my work email address, and I don't want to mix the two.
Okay.
So what we've found is that the POA cannot issue, POA often issue email addresses as far as a .hsvpoa.org type email, other than the one that goes to the chair of each committee. So we could set up, everybody could set up an independent Google or Yahoo type of an account that we could use, or just each individual make that distinction. If you want one, we'll use a different email address for you.
That's what you're going to have to do.
All right.
Okay. Okay. And then, as far as other old businesses, needed external resources, did anybody come up with other, whoops?
From a communication point of view, one of the other things that Keith and I talked about was if any of us have a request, do you want the 9 of us to email, or do you want us to create some kind of systematic way where anybody who has a request of the 2 of you to filter it through either Keith or myself and then only deal with us? What, do you have a preference?
I do not. I do not have a preference. If it will make more sense, like for an example, if I send the emails that I've been sending, if you prefer them go through one of you and then you distribute, which
No,
is
when
fine.
we have a request.
When someone has a
We have a
request,
request.
say Pam has a request, I would prefer Pam just goes directly to you and courtesy copies Nikki and I.
That's fine.
That's the easiest. So if you have a direct request that needs to go to Buddy as the board liaison or Stephanie as the staff liaison, just send directly, just courtesy copy Nikki and I, so we You know, we don't need to be, all right, we get an email, then we gotta forward to Stephanie.
We don't want to delay progress and be a choke point in the communications, but at the same time, we didn't want to overburden you.
I think it's fine. If it becomes a problem, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. New business. The first item on there is the initial discussion of a SWOT analysis.
Well, did you go back to the
You mean
external resources?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Skip.
Okay, external resources. Anybody, there was a discussion on last time. Has anybody come up with the external resources we need right now?
I think we're still in the organization.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
So, but that's key, because as we get working in some of these recommendations, we may need stuff. So again, if you need something you think you give Stephanie, go ahead and send it to Stephanie directly and just courtesy copy it.
That can be in the form of, you know, expert opinions, people, or analytics, you know, informational stuff.
The one thing that I was hoping for was the implementation tables look like it's an Excel spreadsheet. Is that, I would like to get that so I can slice and dice it. Is that possible?
I believe so, yes. Yeah, I'll write that down.
Yeah, if we can just get that, because that's Nikki and then Rolland.
I'd like that also.
Oh, Tom, oh, now you're in trouble, give it to Tom.
And if it's, whatever the most recent version is, because in the paper copy it says to be completed in 2018 or whatever, I don't know if that was actually done in 2018 or if it's been rolled over.
I think that's part of the work, to
I
review and determine where we are.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of those
Yeah.
271 recommendations, go back and find out. Some of them say ongoing, some of them have been completed.
Right.
I mean, there's
Oh, for
several
sure.
that have
So
been
once we
completed.
receive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can just,
source to all of us.
Just
And
get-
that's the nice thing about being an Excel spreadsheet, because then we can start
Right.
generating some other reports and working stuff that we can start pushing things forward or whatever.
Okay, the first new business was an initial discussion on a SWOT analysis. Does everybody understand, know what SWOT stands for? Okay? How many of you been through a SWOT analysis recently? A few. Okay? Who's never, Patricia, okay.
Okay.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities.
I got it.
Okay, you got it all set up there, so
I got it.
you know what they stand for.
Yeah.
What I'd like to have an initial discussion on is how the committee, and this is our initial SWOT, on this document. Not on Hot Springs Village, not on marketing, but on this document. And I just, we throw this out here, if we need to go to the board, we'll go to the board. But what is the strength of this document? Now, I'll start off, the strength of this document is, it has captured our village in depth. You know, I mean, it's given us a lot of detail about our village that we do not have. I will tell you, from my perspective, having sat on the infrastructure side of the house during the development of this, it's a little weak on infrastructure. We didn't really go into the depth of detail like we did on the new development and a couple other things. But on infrastructure, I remember were you part of that? You had been part of that, yeah.
Project Services
Yeah.
Committee, so yeah, I was involved in that.
Yeah, so it was a little weak, it's weak on infrastructure. So,
Should we go to the board right now?
you ready to go? All right, Nikki, here you
Give me a
go.
pen.
Yep.
While she's up there, I want to add, I'm glad that we have a plan, because without a plan, you're planning to fail.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and so strength is, we've got one, right?
We've got a plan, we have something.
Wow. One thing that I really like is it's documented. We have so many plans around here that are in people's heads.
Yeah, it's all in one place. Which
Right.
is-
And I think Keith mentioned it's comprehensive.
It's comprehensive. If you go back and look at any of the plans, if you look at the 2000 strategic plan, which was 10 pages maybe, I think 2005 made it up to 15 pages, 2010 made it up to probably
We were 50 minutes.
50 pages with annexes. But the challenge of all those plans was they were done internally, and they were the villagers looking at the village. This one, the villagers participated in looking at the village, but you had people from outside the village kind of guiding us through this and putting it together.
Well, and I think that's a strength
Strength
to
is,
note up there.
I'm sorry, I
Well-
didn't catch that. What was it?
it's,
Comprehensive.
it's kind, well, it's
Well, I think you put
outside people
outside
participated.
view.
Outside.
Outside,
the
yeah,
view.
outside the village participated in this.
It's
First,
a strength.
It's a strength. So,
Outside the village, wouldn't that make it an effort?
outside the village participated in it and putting it together. Because you couldn't take,
It's
So would
an
you just call that
unbiased
diversified points of
view.
view, unbiased or diverse points of view, something like that, informs the plan?
Outside view, actually.
Well, as a weakness, that evil developer is gonna speak up and state that there's just a lot of items that cannot be done legally that are stated in here.
Okay.
I mean, whether it was based on having the amendment changes,
Mhm.
you know, we voted to have them amended, I guess, but that is a weakness, because there's just a
Some
lot
things
of
that
things that
not doable.
cannot be done.
And that's really important for us to know, like right up front. And so hopefully we can go back and at some point soon, you can help us understand which ones those
Yeah.
are.
Well, that's actually really also a threat to the plan too.
True.
It is, I mean, because it's,
yeah, because it could take, you try to do something and it just
fail,
fails.
or worse,
Well,
it end up legal.
Or you can't do it.
You can't do it.
Can't
It's
do
not
it.
even a fact of trying to do it, you
Yeah.
can't do it.
Well, it's
I
never
mean,
stopped some people
I have
from
to
trying.
disagree.
Right,
I have to disagree.
you have to disagree.
He's an attorney.
I mean,
So tell us.
well, it says, I mean, I'll just use an example, where it states in, not going on town center for town center, but cluster housing, whatever, that we'll just replat it. And we can't. The POA can't replat.
We can with your help.
Correct.
With the,
So it's not
But
impossible.
nowhere,
I mean,
So the barrier is not the
But-
law, but the barrier is.
correct. But I mean, we just need to spell out what you can do without assistance.
Or the path to making it happen, right?
Right.
So maybe
Right.
There is a path.
there's something missing in the path.
Well,
And I mean, or saying
cooperation.
a number of key land acquisitions. Well,
It's-
right now, the POA can't purchase.
and then see, that's what we need to go in and document, when there's a recommendation that says
Right.
do this, here's the limitation
Right.
that we have to get over. So, I mean, because there's several recommendations that have us doing cluster housing.
Right,
All right, we can't do cluster housing unless we do A, B, C, D.
right.
Okay, we need to have that stuff documented.
Well, we can get that worked out, hopefully, and get it
Yeah, but
negotiated done, but my problem is I don't think we ought to be saying can't until we thoroughly investigated, looked at all options, and decided what we think we need to do. And oh, by the way, I have to tell everybody, I'm not here as a lawyer for this committee, I'm here as a property member. I'm not even licensed in the state of Arkansas, so don't ever think that I'm going to render an opinion on Arkansas law. But I think these are things that we need to explore. I think that we need to look at all sides, and we need to see if we can negotiate and make it work.
Correct. I'm just
Because
saying,
these are still problems. These problems were, identified by outside professionals. And these are things that I think that's our job, is to work them out.
I think the key is, as we go forward with anything in the village, is we can find stuff that's mutually beneficial to the developer and the POA. We really need to latch onto
Work
those
together.
and work together to do stuff. I think that's the biggest challenge we have, is the POAs, if trying to go out and do it by themselves, not gonna work right now, because we don't have the legal authority to do some of this stuff. But CCI is still the developer, and we need to figure out those, and that may be, all right, here's how we, in the recommendation says do this. Well, it needs to be a mutual effort from both sides.
and I guess that's a lot
And I
of it.
think
It's
that's
just
the
language
strength of having
states
Jody
individual.
sitting on this committee.
Yeah.
Is that she can bring not only that additional knowledge and perspective, but also help us figure out what is that middle ground, where do we go from here?
And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about, doing our homework assignment and reading all that. Even though you have the implementation tables, which kind of has the timetable, from putting on my project management hat, actual dependencies between one thing and another thing, I don't think have been locked down as in much detail as need to be, because I don't know about when y'all were reading it, but it would say that we could do that, and then the next paragraph is, but you have to do this and this and this and this and this before that, And that, you know, A could jumpstart 17 different things, but it's only captured here, and I'm afraid that from an implementation point of view, we could actually stub our toes a couple times if we don't catch all of those dependencies.
And, for example, one thing that struck me is a lot of things that are in there dependent on the governing document changes that are recommended. And that's not till 27 now.
Yeah.
And so either that means either we have to work something out,
Right.
or those tasks that are dependent on that are not going to get done.
Right.
And that needs to be identified, because that's not the way to eliminate them. But that's the first start of everything, which is just what you said.
Tom?
That second item that says some items can't be done legally, from the discussion I heard, do we want to reword that as saying the barriers to,
Require assistance from outside.
or something like that, you know?
Well, tell me what you're writing, I'll be happy to change it.
Well, I
Can't be
think,
done legally by the POA alone.
yeah.
Are we happy with that?
I think so, yeah, because there's some things that. Opportunities, anybody got any opportunities?
And for those who are not familiar with, I drew in the red, if it's a positive, it's on the left-hand side, negative is on the right-hand side. If it's internal, it's on the top half, and if it's external, it's on the bottom half. So we're talking opportunities are positive externals.
I think number one opportunity is for all of the contractors that, you know, this can be a great opportunity for them to build new homes here. Commercial properties, it's opportunities for new businesses to come to the village.
Opportunity for bringing in,
It's to kickstart some of the building that hasn't been happening, or
Exactly.
development that has been happening, that, you know, it may not be Cooper, but it may be Cooper's land. And I will use as an example, we had an idea 5 years ago on Cooper land, and it didn't pan out. But this would be something that we have a document now.
But it's for all of our contractors, the building contractors, the plumbing contractors, the electricians. I mean, we are a great source into Cooper too, if they want. I mean, you know, we need concrete, you know. But I think that is a real strong, that is a very strong opportunity that everyone needs to know about, because it will help us all.
I think, and to kind of add to what he's saying, in the broader scope, it really does give us kind of a plan for the future economic development going forward, because it's really, the life of the village and the longevity of the village depends upon more than just building new homes. And it's things like workforce development. There's so many pieces to it. But that whole economic development thing is a great opportunity that this sets the stage.
And I think that's key, as we've seen a little bit of development, you know, some people putting some new investment dollars into the village here in the last few months. It helps out with the economic, and it's helping out with a Health Mart building a strip mall outside the East Gate, you know.
It's not just new construction. My plumber, I had some plumbing work done today. He said that he's doing more remodel work in the village than new construction. So it's a terrific opportunity, not just for villagers, but for the entire surrounding area.
As we were talking the other day, maybe I'm just repeating what's up there, but now that we have this plan, we have something we can show developers. And I think the developers, other people that might be interested in building something here, were interested if we knew where we were going. So we can demonstrate to people outside the village that we have a program that we think we know where we're going. And that means it gives them a lot more confidence. So the plan gives a lot more confidence to people outside.
And I think one of the big things up front when we set up to do this plan was that we were wanting to stay as a gated community and our own entity, because that's key. Because if you start making the jump outside that, then it creates a whole different world. And I think that was kind of one of the keys, and I think that we got that loud and clear from the current residents, and I think the future residents like us being our gated community and having our own structure, even though it hinders us sometimes, other times it really helps us, so.
Each one of the opportunities is that it identified some new housing typologies that are trending across the country, right? So that we're not necessarily focused on here at this time. And we're pretty much single-family detached homes on larger lot parcels. And we really aren't at all, and as Jody mentioned, I mean, without the ability to do so, real honestly, or without a lot of help, to actually even address the needs that we're unable to market and complete in order to be competitive.
Yeah.
We just don't
And
have
that's what, I
those
think that's
products.
what, you know, Cooper's looking at, hopefully Madera's Gardens, starting a few more homes there to get in that type of thought process, because, hey, that's what a market's out there. There's a market for people in the village who want to move to Madera. I mean, how many of the Madera's Garden people move from someplace else in the village? Quite a few, you know, so we have people that not only want to come from the outside, but internal to the village, that's the next step, go to Madera's Garden.
And conversely, you know, a threat is the fear of the unknown, the fear that it's going to change the conditions that people bought into and believe in and love. So you have to overcome the fear that it's a...
I think, and you hit it on the head, when you go to the one page there and it shows the Woodlands as this well-developed, 3-story apartment buildings, all this other stuff, that's scared people.
Yes.
And I think it really did scare people
Yeah.
to say, all right, but what we need to look at is say that, remember, this was a 30-year plan, and we didn't look at that. That came out as that's going to happen 2020. No, let's look at the things we can accomplish by 2020 and not scare people off, because there's a lot of good things in this that need to happen first before anything like
So
that.
I need to regroup here, because if the SWOT is on the documentation itself, how
It's
does
on
the
the plan itself,
documentation, where does that, is it fear of,
It's fear of something in the documentation.
so that's internal then? Or is that external?
Correct.
I would say it's probably internal. It's internal right now. It's not so much a fear of the outside world. It's the fear of us internally. To say, oh my gosh, our village is going to
It's a fear of
change.
change you do not understand.
And that's probably, Patricia hit it good there, said, fear that you do not understand. The hardest part sometimes is working through the understanding.
You have to use a language that is relatable, that everybody knows what it means without explaining it. It's got to be common. We all have different environments, different backgrounds. I never heard of SWAT in my entire life. However, I'm glad to say my daughter and my granddaughter do. But my point is that you need to temper your descriptions with words that 95% of us can at least understand. If you're going to use things like SWAT, you're going to get people like me who say, what are they talking about? That's going to cost $1,000, or millions of dollars, or whatever. So you have to tone your language down to be able to relate to everybody, in my opinion.
I'd like to pile onto that comment, because, well, part of the reason I'm on this committee, because I've read that document
Yeah, me too.
a bunch of times.
Yeah, me too.
And I feel so confident that I personally don't understand it. And
100% confident that you don't understand?
I do not understand it. If you read one page, I can maybe understand what's on that one page. When I go through the 271 line item suggestions, I just get lost.
Well, it gets to the interdependencies, because how are these all linked is one of the
Right.
things to try to understand. Here's what we need to do, A, before we do B, C, and D, and then
Yeah.
D
So-
before you do E, F, and G.
So where I ended up was, I think I get the general high-level strategies it's trying to lay out on me. I get all these implementation steps. And to me, a big weakness is there's no kind of bridge between the big floofy strategies and the 271 things that that should have already been accomplished, we should be working on today, and maybe some of the things in the future, and all the ongoing.
Okay, and hold on, Clint. because that leads right into a threat. Because if we don't understand it, the outside world definitely not gonna understand
People
it.
in this room.
Well, I'm just saying, we as the village, if someone like Tom doesn't understand it, he's a villager who's lived here, how many years now?
8
Yeah, 8 years. He doesn't understand it. If someone who's outside the village picks this up, are they
So is
gonna?
the threat the complexity, or is the threat the structure of the document?
I think a little bit's the structure.
Well, you know,
I think the fear is education. I think one of the things that we've got to do is we have to educate, I mean, part of what we're doing is educating ourselves so that we can provide better assistance. And then two, and this may be a subpart or a whole new one, we've got to work with the villagers and help them to understand. And I think we also have to get the help from the news media, the radio station, all of these folks to where they understand that we are working very hard to make these things understandable and work it, you know, and have some trust in us, if you will. This is, you know, we were all carefully selected and we're gonna work hard to do the right things. But that fear comes out of, I hate to call it ignorance, but that's, you know, a lot of folks don't know what's in the plan. They've never read the plan, and we've got to help educate them on what's really there so that they don't go out and say, this is gonna cost us $100 million. That bothers me, is when I read it on Nextdoor and the rest of the, you know, that people have written these horribly inflated ideas that they're just not in there.
I do believe it should be a plan, this plan should be a shorter, more user-friendly for the population that lives here.
And us.
Well, we are the population that lives here, yeah. But this is more for the professional who can understand the finances, who can understand. I looked through this thing when I saw how many trucks or whatever the dickens we've got to maintain everything. I go, who in the world? I don't even know where you guys keep them. I'm serious. I mean, I thought, oh.
I think, Patricia, the challenge is, when you bring up an item like that, and you go to the tables in the back and show all the trucks and all this other
Yes.
stuff, that's where we put in for infrastructure and not putting a good explanation in of how we recapitalize our fleet. Because you need to, as a corporation or a city, no matter what, we're a city/corporation, you have to recapitalize your fleet. And that's why, but we put in every truck.
I understand that, but I mean.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that is something that is understandable, but when you list out 20, well, not even 20 trucks, 100 of trucks.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
good grief. And some of them I never, I've heard of John Deere tractor, but not one of these other things, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Maybe we're back to schedule and precedence, but I think one big negative is there are no priorities. Everything sitting in there looks equal.
Well, now,
And I think that one of our big jobs is to figure out what we can do, what the low-hanging fruit is, what we can do now, or what we can begin to do, and set some priorities which we think is most important, and work on those. Because you can't progress 270 things at once.
no, but if you look at the back of the CMP, you'll see the service gap cables. And it tells you what they feel, or we feel, that the priority, the
Service gaps.
yeah,
The
thanks.
gap.
Or it tells you, you know, what should be high on the list, medium, and so on. So you've got a little bit of a guide.
Okay,
Yeah, but that's one small area of it.
yeah.
Right.
And you've done all those other tasks, and
Right.
which ones are really important now that we need to get working on, and which ones are long-term, and again, the schedule, you get that all sorted out, then we have a lot clearer path,
Okay.
and we can show people what we're.
Let's take that as an action item for next meeting, that for each of the members to look at it and say, what do you think the priorities should be? So we can come in and talk about what, you know, from your perspective, what the priorities should be.
I think before we can do that, though, we need to have a clearer understanding of, for the POA, what do they feel their priorities are?
Okay.
You know, is revenue really high on the list? Is infrastructure, just supporting the infrastructure high on the list? We need to know that before we're sitting there identifying priorities.
Well, I think you can always go back to our enterprise goals. That is our priority. So anything that informs or furthers our enterprise goal is our priority. So when you look through the document, I mean, those things that actually accomplish the goals, the corporate goals, are the things that we are focused on, period. I mean,
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Evidently, marketing is high.
Sure.
Because we're already doing
Yeah,
a second, so there's the first priority, evidently.
And at the last meeting, we talked about anything we could do to help with clarifying what the 2020 budget is going to be, since you're in the budget cycle, if we notice anything. But that's also going to come down what work needs to happen this year versus what's happening next year, because if it has to happen this year, we have to have budget towards it, otherwise it's not going to happen.
And our hope is because we are in I mean, you guys are just getting started and we are already kicking off budget
Right.
season, right? It's gonna be really difficult for you to give us much needed, number type information. So these analysis that you're doing, and starting with this one and then moving on to whatever the next analysis is that you're gonna do within the plan, will inform the budget. I mean, your narrative will inform the budget, kind of what you perceive to be the opportunities and threats and strengths and weaknesses and things like that will help us.
Buddy, as a result of the, whatever you call it, those meetings you had the other day, the retreat, do you have any, off the top of your head, priorities that you think came out of that?
The first one is something you're gonna work on today, is marketing. That is a big one. And there were some others. The big thing is to get you in this first meeting for you basically to set your priorities instead of us, and then you come back with us with where you wanna go. But the marketing thing has got to get off the ground.
Yeah. And I guess just looking at the agenda and also the general feedback I got from the retreat was revenue generation.
Yes, sir.
Would be a-
We're gonna get on that one.
Yeah, and we will.
Okay, we've kind of beat this one over a little bit, and again, this was our initial discussion of the SWOT. I would throw out to you, if you could think of other things that you get home and you have, oh yeah, this should be part of it, please send it to us so we can include it, because I just want to put it out and say, here's, the good and the bad type of stuff here, and we'll capture this in the notes, in the minutes to kind of say, this is what we've done initially. But I just want everybody to kind of think about the plan. Again, it's, it's the plan document there, and, we all have our opinions, but actually, when you sit and talk through it on a SWOT analysis, you hear, okay, yeah, now I understand. I would say, when Patricia said, making it understandable, I mean, people in the back there, you would like to have it more understandable, I would bet, too. Because you don't sit at home and read the CMP. Unless I see John Froning there. Yeah, I've read it, I read it every night. It's something there. But for most people, they're not going home and reading the CMP.
And
Okay.
then also keep in mind that part of our charter is that we will have 4 of the SWATs throughout the year, so we're thinking about a quarterly basis of doing that. So not only do we have to kind of target which meetings we're going to do those at, but I would like to offer to you that you start thinking about, if we're going to do 4 SWATs, what are we going to do the 4 SWATs on? Today we did it on the documentation itself, but as part of our, if you have some thoughts on what other SWATs we should do, start throwing those out, and then we can prioritize and see which ones we're going to pick. We have 3 more to do.
Yeah, if we need to come back and do this one again, we can come back and do it again. If you think we have that much more. I think we've captured a lot of our thoughts on, the actual plan itself. Okay, item 7B is the mission statement and goals and objectives for this committee. Again, this is kind of, we're not going to hammer out an actual mission statement today, but want to kind of capture some words and stuff like that. Yep. And so I kind of, and also our goals and objectives. So what I would like to use this, next time is to kind of get some, what you think, what some words are. I mean, I sat there and Nikki grabbed a bunch of mission statements out of, kind of non-profits or not-for-profits.
Yeah.
The one key thing of the mission statement is they were all about 10 words or less. So what is our actual mission gonna be? And I'll kind of start, one of the things I mean, we're an advisory committee. So do we need in there the word advice? Type of thing. What are the words we need in there? We also, we talked about, and I think Buddy talked about it last time, the three-legged stool. We report to 3 different constituencies, the board, the staff, and the property owners. So how do we capture that? We're providing, it's simplistic as providing advice, our mission is to provide advice to the board, staff, and property owners. Well, that's pretty boring type of stuff. But that's the simplistic type of thing out there. One of the things in my mind, and it goes back a little bit to what Patricia said, is providing advice which is supportable by the property owners. Does everybody understand what I'm saying there?
No.
Okay, we are providing advice that is supportable to the property owners. I'm not saying 100% of the property owners. There's some type of level when we provide advice. It's one of those things, you provide advice, let's go out and restripe the Coronado Center parking lot, and let's use yellow. Okay, 95% of the people will say, yeah, that's good advice that you use yellow stripes. 5% will say they want white stripes. Or blue, or some other. But how do we, as a committee, provide advice? You want to provide advice that is supportable by the majority, whatever the word is. You don't want to go out there and just, it's kind of Don Quixote. You don't want to go out there and chase the windmill with your advice. So I kind of throw that out there too, to kind of stimulate some, what type of words? Rolland, you got some words for me?
Well, kind of your words, advice that has the majority support of the property owners.
I think that property owners is too limiting. I think it should be stakeholders, because I still have concerns that we haven't identified all the stakeholders that we need to be interacting with.
I wonder how many homeowners or property owners or homeowners actually know what the meaning of stakeholders is. In my opinion, it means everyone who's involved with the village. The commercial, the real estate, the base camp, the restaurants, everybody. But stakeholder doesn't sound like anything the average person reads in their.
That's probably true. It's
It's
terminology.
it's term of art that we use in budget management.
It is,
and that
but
tends to lead
every,
management.
but every single profession has its own lingo. And not everybody is that professional. There are things RNs say that I have, what does that mean? And I've got more downloads than you can possibly imagine. Because my profession has not included this kind of terminology. And I remember the first time I read the word stakeholder. I thought, what the hell is that? Who's a stakeholder?
Well, maybe we need to define it. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, it's anyone who has a vested interest.
Well, then you run into essentially the fits on a bumper sticker problem, which is, I think, what we're trying to get to.
I mean, that means the guy who pressure washed my house yesterday is a stakeholder, right?
Yes, he made his living here.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
made his-
he makes his living doing that. here.
Exactly, I think.
So it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, it does, but it's gotta be more simple, I think, than stakeholder.
Clint, you look like you're deep in thought there on this.
Well, I have to go back, yes, I am deep. I question how much lawyers look to duty. I question how much duty we have. If stakeholder means everybody who crosses the gates, I question whether that we have a duty to them. I think our primary duty, or maybe our absolute duty, is to the property owners. Because we're all property owners. We wouldn't be here the exception of Ms. Latham, and she's representing a property owner. But we're here because we're property owners.
But how many people hear the term property owners and think commercial? The restaurants, the gas stations, the golf courses?
I'm not saying we ignore them. I'm not saying, you know,
But how do
goodness,
you-
don't twist this into, you know, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just for the clarity here. We care about all of these things,
Right.
but
It gets back to who's our primary mission?
who's our exactly,
Primary mission.
who's our primary mission? And those are the folks that I think we've got to listen to. You know, we as homeowners, we're the ones paying the dues. We're the ones who have the fear about the future. We're the ones who have a fear about increases. Those, you know, I think it's important to look at the broad picture, but I would hate to, I think at this time, I would hate for us to focus and get lost on looking at everyone.
The opposite is also true. You become so myopic and you focus on one thing, you forget about some of the other
Well,
things. I think there's a
I
balance in
agree,
there.
yes,
Yeah.
it's gotta be a balance.
And I think that one of the things that is interesting about stakeholders is that it's two parts. One of it is who's going to be impacted, in this case by the CMP, but also who has influence over the direction of it. So you can have a push and a pull. And my concern is that if we don't look at the broader picture of other people who could influence this, think about legal entities and, go to the county level where things are being established. Who knows what they could do? We could say we're going down a path and all of a sudden, somebody outside of our control is saying we need to go in a different direction because that's just the way of the wind. I don't know, but that is the risk of who has influence over the direction of where we go.
I think we're saying the same thing. I just wanted to bring that up, that, you know, when it comes push to shove, I think our primary duty is to the property owners first.
Commercial, residential, and
Yeah, I think if you say,
black people,
well,
whatever.
property owners, to the true property owners are the ones that own the commercial. You know, the people who own the strip malls, and own the offices and stuff like that, because they're the ones who have put money on the line. So they're the Greg Joneses of the world who bought Last Chance. You know, he's got some money on the line.
Right, and he pays dues.
He pays dues as a commercial property owner.
Yeah.
We just have to balance things, that's all.
Right, absolutely.
Does anybody, Murray, you want to say something? Okay, so, go ahead.
I started working on this a little bit, and the things that were coming and circling in my brain was, one of the reasons why we were created was communication, making sure that we're doing good communication. I think that's a key word that probably needs to be in there in some way, both in and out, being available, because we had talked a little bit last time about how available are we going to make ourselves to people who want to, share their concerns or have a question or whatever the situation would be. Promoting understanding with CMP, I think that's part of our mission, and also providing insights regarding stated priorities. One of our stakeholder groups is going to be both the board as well as the staff. So, we have the communication and responsibilities to help with guidance, from whatever we uncover as we go through.
What about like building trust in the process? Is there a place for trust in that?
There's always a place for trust.
And think
I
that-
believe that too, so I'm just wondering how you might incorporate it into your statement.
So-
Because trust is it's the underlying building blocks of what's gonna make
Yeah,
it
well, I think
successful or not.
that's kind of key right now, as we've seen in the village over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that trust factor is kind of ebbed and flowed, I believe that, so.
Okay, so two-way communication, build trust, advise.
Well, what you said kind of mirrored what I wrote down. I have educate, I have advice, prioritize.
So what you're all doing up there is you're talking about specific actions, activities.
We're talking, yeah.
Yeah.
So what you want to get to with that is, what do you want to accomplish with all of this? That's our mission. What is the outcome? If we advise the POA in a certain way, if we build trust with the property owners, if we communicate well, what is the bottom line to all that? That's our mission.
So somewhere along the way has to be implementation of the CMP in the mission statement, right?
Someplace in the mission statement is some type of.
Successful implementation of the CMP.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Choose implement is execute, but to advise the POA on the execution or implementation of the CMP for the benefit of the property holders.
Is that a mission statement or
That's a
something?
mission statement.
Mission
Say it
statement.
again. Would you do it one more time?
Advise the POA and just this general thing, I mean the staff, everything, on the implementation of the CMP for the benefit of the property owners.
How about if you just add the word successful implementation?
I like that there.
That's it, we'll get that one, and as we've had some of the things put here, communication and stuff like that, those lead into objectives too, because those would be good objectives to say, all right, here's what we want to do. We want to effectively communicate with all parties on this. I mean, what else would write down there? Trust, objective to build trust in the CMP is probably one of the first objectives we need to get out there, because the average villager who has any opinion about the CMP, it's not positive probably. I mean, they can, if they can spell CMP, it's going to have a negative in their mind. So
Well,
how do we build trust?
So what you're describing, and this too, that's basically the vision statement.
Well, our mission statement.
Our mission statement is
And then these are
is
some of
what
the
you want to end
objectives,
up
what
with,
we
and the
want to
vision.
do. What we want to do as a committee
Mhm.
is do some of these as objectives. That would be our objectives.
Well, yes, but also the vision statement helps drive your objectives too.
Yeah.
So basically what the vision statement does is say, here's how we're going to do, here's how we want to do the mission. Here's how we want to accomplish that mission.
I thought a vision statement of more something that is the future state of where we want to end up.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Isn't-
It does, but isn't that what we're talking about? Don't we want to end up with successful communication? Don't we want to end up with trust? Don't we want to end up with, it just
That's-
depends on how you word it, but that's basically what you're saying. It is, these are the things we really want to end up with. So those become our goals, that's where we're going to hit that mission, that ultimate.
What was your beginning sentence you said?
What I've written down now,
Yeah, that-
I'm gonna give them.
And we'll put it in the minutes, and then, I want to just, again, this was an initial discussion, I want to get it out there, so, again, mull over, because folks, I mean, the concern I have is everybody thinks we need to do everything like this. This is a stood-up committee that people are on 1-, 2-, and 3-year terms. It's supposedly going to be around for a while. We don't need to accomplish everything on, what's today, May 10th? By 3 o'clock.
Okay, and I'll give them this statement or do whatever.
But I wanted to get this kind of percolating in our thought process, to have this discussion out there, so we can, if you have some comments, go ahead and get the comments. So.
Okay, so you're advise the POA on the successful implementation of the CMP for the benefit of HSV property owners.
And maintain a confident future for us and those to come.
We can add if we want.
Yeah, give it to Tom, because he can put it in.
It's getting, one thing about the mission is you don't want to get too long.
Thank you.
No.
And
Now, let's see if we
under
get-
that comes goals, which is things like we've listed up here.
Okay, now we get to item C, which is everybody's been waiting for. And that is the draft charter. for the marketing subcommittee. Okay, and I will just, for everybody's edification, we are still on task to form a subcommittee on marketing. There are people out there who think otherwise, but this committee's task is to form a committee, a subcommittee on marketing, and we will to do that. We have we have a couple people that are marketing. You know, Jody, I would say your job is marketing. Pam is a marketing person right now. I have asked Pam to be the leader of our subcommittee. She's on site. She is semi-retired, I would guess.
She's still doing marketing.
Yeah, but she's still doing marketing. But she's semi-retired from marketing out of California, and she's still doing marketing here. So just so you kind of know up front that I've asked Pam to lead that subcommittee based on her experience. As we look down this charter, we will be reaching out to property owners, and we have several of them in the audience today that show an interest in being potentially on this subcommittee. So they're here listening to what we're going to talk about. But I want to use that as kind of a preference as we go into this charter out there. This was a charter. If you look at the charter, it's drafted in the purpose of here's how we do charters. Because everything, and the charter will have to go to
the governance committee and to the board.
So today's purpose is definitely to review what
we got out there and then get it to the board so they can give us their approval for the charter. Okay. Everybody, you got sent the charter. Pam, I know you.
I'm not getting emails. Well, this is ours.
Yeah, let me give you 5 copies.
Thank you.
So there's an original draft and this is the red one.
Okay, we got a couple comments in earlier. One of the comments I'll go over right now came from Pam in there. It talks about how many people on the committee, and the kind of question is we have 5 people on the committee. Does that include the chairperson or not include the chairperson? I would say it does not include the chairperson. We need to write it that way so that we could have the chairperson plus 5 people. So we'd be looking for 5 individuals to be part of this effort here.
Yeah, line items, did you get, so, number 3, Roman numeral 3, A and E are kind of contradictory, it's not clear.
So it would be a subcommittee shall consist of a chairperson plus 5 additional property owners is probably the way to do it. And then
Is 5 an adequate number?
I think 5 is a good number right now because if we get too big, it's going to get unwieldy.
Okay.
And I'll be very honest with you, Rolland, I think finding the right expertise at 5 in the village would be a good number, type of thing.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments, folks, when the charter is there? I mean, again, I'll highlight some of the charter that we have. Appoint the chairperson. The chief member experience officer and the director of sales and marketing will be the staff liaisons to this subcommittee. This subcommittee will report back to the CMP, AC, as that's who they report to. If they need some staff type of liaisons, that's where they're going to get it. But ultimately, anything that they recommend or comes out of this marketing subcommittee comes back through us.
Will there be a board liaison as well?
Stephanie or Buddy, we have a board liaison to the subcommittees.
I don't believe there is a board liaison.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He is the subcommittee. He's the board liaison to this committee, which means he's serves.
I don't think subcommittee have a board
Melissa's back there, is
liaison.
that right? Subcommittees do not need a board liaison, right?
Not typically, I mean, you have a board liaison that surely
Okay.
Okay, so
I
it's
just wanted to
Buddy.
make sure.
Point of order. is the general plan here to kind of discuss the possible changes and then come
Yeah,
up
so
with
we
a
set it
final
up.
and then vote on it? Is that the process?
And I'd probably do the vote by electronically.
Okay,
So if we want to have some things there, so we don't have to wait till the next meeting to get this. I want to get I want to get Pam her charter. Well, actually, we got to get it done because then we got to send it to Buddy so they can get it approved out there.
I agree.
Yeah, so.
What about item F under organization appointment? Is it for a subcommittee, do we really want 3-year terms?
That's what, I mean, that's a standard term for a committee member, when we appoint someone to a committee. I mean, this committee, we did the staggered on out there, but do we?
I mean, I'm comfortable with that only because you get some continuity and you get some momentum going with consistency of people, so.
Conversely, there's the other thought that how many people are we going to get stepping up when they're making a 3-year commitment? If we gave them an option for something less than that, they may be willing and might open the doors for other people versus if we say, yep, you're in for 3 years, we're throwing away the key.
You aren't in prison, though, I mean,
Yeah, these are volunteer committees, if they're
They're
quick.
if their health problems or
Yeah.
if something else comes up, or,
Yeah.
you know, your wife gets real sick and you gotta take care of her or something like that, then you can resign.
Yeah.
So you're
You're not tied into it.
tied into it under penalty of.
I mean, this committee itself is a 3-term committee. The only reason why we have staggered terms right now is to get it started. But here going forward, everybody that joins this committee will be 3-year.
Yeah.
Okay, just asking the question.
This committee reports to us.
Yes.
Should it actually say that, or is it just understood?
Good point.
I thought I'd added in,
Maybe, I couldn't find it.
well,
Well, I would say if it's important, then. it
yeah, we
should
need
be.
to put it in
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Yeah, I think they need it. Back to the people, I would add, I think that the people on the committee need to be in good standing with the POA.
Okay. And everybody understands what good standing, everybody in this committee understands what good standing is. So, okay. Pay your bill.
Pay your bill.
Now, our charter has a lot of stuff about public meetings, and there's no such equivalent wording in
Their
here.
meetings will have to be public.
Yeah, I mean, but our charter specifically says that.
They still operate under a lot of our stuff.
Okay.
They're a subcommittee of our committee, so, if, you know, type of stuff, public meetings out there, and,
Well, maybe we need to say something that as a subcommittee of all the terms and conditions that the parent has, will also apply to any sub.
So the bylaws are specific to what subcommittee, how subcommittees operate.
Okay.
So we can always reference back to that.
other thoughts?
And we've confirmed that duties and responsibilities, B, section 3, element 4, is the correct, that's not typing? Just those
Yes.
little details.
That's correct.
Are we ready to talk about what these folks are supposed to do?
Yes, I want to get through this first.
Okay.
And we're gonna give them kind of the first type of, here's what you're looking at doing.
You know where I'm going.
Well,
Clint, read duties and responsibilities and see what needs to be added to that.
Is that what you're getting ready to talk about?
No,
Well, this is
it's
kind
just
of
I
like-
communicate, yeah.
this is kind of, I'm looking at, you know, we want to give them something to think about, where they're going, especially the people that potentially want to join this committee. That's what I'm going to use this next, because like I said, they need to know what they're getting into.
Well, maybe you should run through those duties and responsibilities.
Well-
specifically. Okay. Just make sure everybody's really
The
clear.
duties and responsibilities are kind of, well, vanilla type of stuff there, but this will lead in, let me kind of, does anybody have questions on the duties and responsibilities? I mean, it's review section 3 of the comprehensive master plan supporting, make recommendations to the CMP AC on revisions to section 3, element 4, marketing and communication of the CMP, be knowledgeable about past HSV marketing programs and their outcomes, be familiar with current HSV marketing programs, make recommendations on concepts, plans, strategies, programs, etc. that guide the marketing and public relations efforts, provide input on the adopted marketing plan for the Hot Springs Village and recommend periodic revisions. And I will key on that one right now. We have a marketing plan out there. There is a current marketing plan. This committee will have to learn what the marketing plan is to kind of make any recommendations on it. That's always key. You got to know what the plan is before you make any recommendations on it.
Can I see it?
Well, and there's a, Tom, that's kind of a question there.
Okay.
But I just bring that out there. Assist in bringing HSV's mission and vision to life in the community. Provide to the appointed staff leads and the chairperson of the CPAC an annual review and assessment of the effectiveness of the advertising efforts and expenditures by June of each year. That's going to be kind of hard by this year. Serve as a creative resource group for ideas pertaining to public relations, marketing, advertising, and sales. This is kind of get the thoughts going out there. Engage in regular communication and consultation with the CMP, I'm just going to call it the SIMPAC, on matters of mutual interest. Conduct research and recommended opportunities for continuing education on current marketing trends as they relate to master plan private communities. Be mindful of current residents' expectations and potential new resident expectations. So, people that live here, people that lived here for 20 years have some expectations. Someone who's looking at coming here may have differing expectations. So how do you look at both of those? Conduct an annual self-evaluation of the performance of the subcommittee and the effectiveness and compliance with this charter. Be well-versed and understand the CMP objectives, strategies, and intended outcomes. So that's the nuts and bolts of what this charter is. So does anybody have any other comments on that? The limitations are don't commit money, don't do this, don't go to jail, those type of things. But that's what the limitations are. Rolland?
Just seems to me like the word organization is missing somewhere, whether they're going to evaluate the organization of the plan or the current, how it's structured and spread around.
The organization of
The marketing effort.
marketing
You
effort.
know, whether it's unified effort or it's.
Well, I think that kind of fits into the one there. Be familiar with the current HSV marketing programs. Do we need to put marketing programs and organization or something
Yeah.
like that?
I think something like that.
I'm big on monitoring, and things like evaluate effectiveness, and establishing measures of success, stuff like that. Do you think that's captured in here, or something like that?
That might be another good bullet to put in there.
Or is that covered under the
Yeah.
annual report, and
Yeah.
then we provide the structure of how that annual report?
I mean, well, ultimately, I mean, this is a subcommittee of us, we can tell them, you know, whatever theoretically we want them. But if you're walking in here, you're one of the 5 or 6 people to be put on the committee, you want to know what you want to do. I think it's good to read straight off the bat that,
Sign
yeah,
up.
you're signing up to evaluate whether our marketing programs are effective, cost-benefit analysis, stuff like that. Because I am a bean
I second that, I think that's important. I really
Tom,
do.
can you just write up a bullet?
I will try.
Try to put a bullet and just get it to us and we'll put it in there. Because, yeah, that's that's why it's challenging to know, and I'll be very honest, the challenge is going to be how much do we rely on the past and how much we look to the future and knowing and making a balance. This committee's going to have to make a balance there because we can say, well, it was done this way 20 years ago by Cooper, but it was a different environment. It's a whole different environment. Because, you know, I've heard that said, well, Cooper did it this way. It's kind of like, yeah. In
Cooper probably doesn't
1990,
market their new.
yeah, Cooper did it that way because that was the market. I mean, you know, my scenario is I'm a Detroit Tigers baseball fan, and we used to hear ads for Hot Springs Village by George Kell on the Tiger radio broadcast. So,
And let me just say, so one of the major priorities for this group, this new subcommittee group is focused more on the on the why, not the how.
And that's what we're gonna get to. Wait a
Okay.
minute, right now, because I will pass out. Just kind of, does anybody have anything else on the charter? I want to have this discussion now, so we kind of give Pam a feel for, and for the people that potentially want to join this committee, what the initial phase is out there. Because everybody wants to jump to an answer. We got some challenges up front, so. you just wanna-
As soon as you get this charter down where you want it, we need to get it to, so we can get it to the governance committee
Okay.
and to the board, okay?
Okay, folks, if you don't know, there's been a lot of stuff out there talking about marketing. If you haven't read the internet, you missed it. I put this together trying to encapsulate all kinds of thoughts that's been going on out there. Why it's entitled Marketing Strategy is, off the bat, this committee needs to deal with a marketing strategy. What is our marketing strategy? Do we have one right now that we feel confident in? That's what he's going. But it's going back. Let's talk to it. For the folks that don't know me, I'm a military guy. We started with, what are our strategic objectives? What is our strategy? And then we worked our way down to bomb the hell out of them. But we didn't start off with bomb the hell out of them as our strategy. We start working down. We may have got down to set the stuff there. So,
Might need that.
but that's, and I'll kind of step through. The what and why are parts of a marketing strategy. What and why are we, what is our strategy? Why are we taking this strategy? Because we hope that we want to grow the village. That's what our part of this, growing the village. We don't want to stay stagnant. We want to grow the village, and residents coming in to buy existing homes as well as buy new homes. The how is the marketing plan. But it's hard to put a plan together if you don't have the strategy. So we need to go back and think about strategy. And, that's what is our strategy? And I put some of this out here, What is our current marketing strategy? Why has it produced the results we are getting? How is effectiveness being judged? That hits right to what you talked about, Tom. What is our marketing strategy? We need to be judging it. You look at folks, they go in one direction and they got a strategy, it's not working. So they have to come back and think about it and say, how do we need to potentially change our strategy? What was the focus of past HSV marketing strategies? This is where, you go to Cooper. You go to, some of you were around for the NRPI days. Look at their strategy. Their strategy was load a bunch of Californians on an airplane, catch them at the airport, put them on a bus, suck them out here, give them the hard sell, and, away they went. So is that, that's part of the strategy. That was their plan, but that was their strategy. Get a captive audience and don't let them out of here until we got some money out of them. If I had to capture their,
Kind of Cooper.
you gave them a few more days here, so.
That's just a variation of bomb.
Some of the salespeople were like.
Okay, as we look at this strategy, as this committee starts off with looking at the strategy, what is our brand message? This has been something we have been bouncing around, trying to figure out who we are ever since Cooper left. I shouldn't say Cooper left, but when Cooper pulled out of the large marketing effort. Have we ever really know what our brand is? We think we know what our brand is, but do we really know what our brand is? Because that's important. I think it was in this room, I just watched the video, you had Phil Lemler up here talking about brands and stuff like that. We got to go back and say, what is our brand? Because why do we want to, we do not want to, and I'll use this as an example, does our brand compete directly with the village's brand? We compete a little bit, but we're not competing directly. It's a different style of development. And what is our brand? They have their brand, and what is our brand?
You're
So,
speaking about the villages in
the
Florida.
villages in Florida, I said the villages,
That's
not the
not
village.
but.
Yeah,
We're the village.
we're the village versus the
They're
village.
the villages.
But they have their brand. What is our brand? And I would say we're different. We are, I mean, we're different out there. So. Here's, as we look at this marketing strategy, what demographics should we focus on? What's the age? The age of marketing to a 65-year-old is how you, maybe in your strategy. But we have some 50-year-old housing out there too. How do we market that? Because we got to market type stuff there. So what is the age in our strategy? What area of the nation is our strategy looked at? I will tell you, it's a lot different marketing to someone in the Northeast than it is marketing to someone in Wisconsin. And I'm a Midwest boy, and coming from the middle of the country is a lot different in how you market. It's a lot different marketing to Californians than maybe someone from Minnesota right now.
Because we're weird.
Well, see, I want to hit
Californians are
Pam.
weird.
So, but there's a market out there in California, and I think that's where, and our PI touched into it, but what is our area nation out there?
One of the things that popped in my mind, and it's sort of related, is exit surveys. If somebody's leaving the village, would be really good intel to find out why.
Yeah, they use, it'd be great to get that. Those folks don't want to.
It is amazing how many people that I've been talking to lately, and I haven't asked the question yet, but, they're either coming in or going away from the village, and are we doing something that we shouldn't be doing, or should better be doing, or whatever, I don't know.
Lots of times, people are very willing to do exit surveys because if they're leaving, they're unhappy about something, and people that are unhappy usually like to verbalize that. So I think that's a great idea.
But I don't think we can totally focus on that. I think we also have to talk to people coming in and why. We've been looking for a lake house for 10 years. And one of the things that attracted us primarily was the gates, because our investment would be safe. And so I think we need to look, why are the people moving here? I think that's as important as why people leave.
You could have one of your committee go to the newcomers meetings and visit with the newcomers. There's a certain period of time there and find out, because we've got 22 permits through April. The people are moving here for some reason. And I believe if you went to that, and there's plenty of space in there to ask them, why are you coming? That would be
And I
just
think
an
if we don't
idea.
want to capture each person on the way out, the realtors will tell you why some people are leaving too.
Ooh, that's a good thought.
I'm very honest with you, I know a couple realtors will just tell you exactly why this person left. Because they usually do. Whether it's, they've gotten too old and they're moving back to Dallas, or these people were just not happy.
I think the bottom line is the more information we have all the way around is really important. Too often we assume or we think we know, but to get that data, to have that information of all different types, it is really important in the marketing effort.
And not only demographics, I would like to see what market segments, because I think from a strategy as well as a plan point of view, we have different messaging that would be appropriate for different segments. And if we tailor it, I think that increases the effectiveness.
Okay?
In terms of some of that external resources I was talking about,
Yeah.
where are, this may be a place where you need some external resources to help inform that.
Yeah, again, we talked about this at the last meeting. Don't want to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's
Right.
already got that data, then let's go ahead and pull that. But I think we should revalidate it, because if it's over 3 years? It might as well be 100 years old as far as accuracy and validity with the current strategy.
Moving
Especially in
along,
marketing.
it just dawned on me, I think that we need to have them work, either we give them a deadline or they work on a deadline to report back to us so that we can start moving this information along as quickly as possible. Because we need this, everybody needs this
Yeah.
information so that we can implement what we learn, back to priorities. I think that's important. And then we share it with folks that need it.
And Clint, to piggyback on that, I think that it has to be more specific than an agenda item that the subcommittee will be reporting back, it has to be more specific as, we'll be reporting on X deliverable or commitment, lay out your plan, we're not gonna force it, your plan, you do it. But once we have that, then I think our responsibility as the primary of the sub is to hold them to it.
Is it too pushy, if you will, if we were to give them dates that we, now they can
No,
come
you
back
can,
and ask for?
I think that's a good idea, give them some dates. I mean, we have some dates that we've been handed to us.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's.
but I mean, you can always ask for
Yeah.
continuance, but, hopefully they'll meet these so that, rather than, we couldn't decide, or we're, come back to us, tell us what you found out.
And I think that also pushes the, at least once a month meeting, well, if you can't get it done, then that's more meetings. You have
And
to-
this is where the subcommittee is gonna have to decide how often do they have to meet. Some subcommittees may have to meet more often. So it may be they're meeting out of cycle from us, or the subcommittee, that have to decide, subcommittee is gonna meet, 11 o'clock on Friday before the, main committee meeting. It just kinda depends. I'll leave that up to the,
In certain times of the year, they may have to meet more times
Yeah.
than other times of the year when things are kind of settled and they're just monitoring, so to speak.
So the charter does state that the subcommittee will meet monthly or as required to
Yeah.
keep track. So it gives that flexibility.
when you start looking at the strategy, what products should the strategy focus on? Current homes, new housing types, unimproved lots. We got all kinds of different pieces out here, and each of them's how you may be a little bit differently in the strategy.
How about vacation homes?
That gets down to the bottom.
Rentals.
Yeah, it gets into that. So we gotta be, when you go back to your strategy, we're dealing with a lot of things. Again, people tend to jump right to the plan, but what is our strategy? Where do we wanna focus? We may wanna focus on new homes first, and then in our strategy. That's up to the, whatever strategy gets developed.
The CMP calls for, 2,500 new homes,
Yeah.
right, over the course of X number of years. Obviously ambitious, and there's a lot of work to be done, but, that
We got a 9,000 homes
we're gonna-
already here.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if we're gonna make that goal by whatever that date is, 10 years or 20 years, whatever, then that should inform the strategy.
And then and it says, who should the HSV focus efforts on? Do we focus on golfers? Do we focus on amenity users versus homeowners? And does anybody understand what I'm saying, amenity users versus homeowners? These are folks that just want to come in and golf, and they don't want to live here. They have an unimproved lot, they're happy. They may come down here once or twice a year and rent something. Primary home ownership and/or second home vacation home ownership. What is the strategy on that? What's our strategy on natural environment lovers? We got a lot of people out there that come here now because they want trees. They don't want to go to the village in Florida where that one palm tree is there in the middle of the cul-de-sac, so you go see your palm tree. They want more trees.
I forgot horse races. It's one of those lists.
Those are all cost of living conscious. What does Arkansas try to sell itself on? We are the cost of living versus other areas. Here's one that, will put the hair up on some people's necks. Resort style consumers with potential to be homeowners. How many people come down here because they want to come on a vacation? And it may take them 1 or 2 times on a vacation, then they finally decide they want to live. But how do we market to some of them? And lastly, I throw this one on, being a retired military, we got an influx of people, and I'll tell you one thing, the retired military are cheap. I hate to say that, but we're cheap. So is that a focus area? We talked about that, it's a focus area, and why this is a focus area, because the state of Arkansas went to bat to get their taxes taken off the retired military to try to open that, spigot a little bit more. But there's all kinds of other pieces out there that if you have, that would go into our strategy.
Is this just for, I don't see any commercial.
This is just to get the thought going, Patricia.
Okay.
So this was my, in the strategy, you bring up a point.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that
Commercial.
advertises to.
To get something in there, so we take of that. Again, I use this as to say, we gotta step back. This committee, this subcommittee needs to step back first and say, what is our strategy? Because, yeah, everybody has a plan. But if it's not, the plan doesn't fit into the strategy, you could bomb the hell out of them, but it was a humanitarian mission that was the strategy, and then type of stuff there. And again, I hate to put my military hat on, but, you know, we have strategies to do humanitarian missions too.
I want to go so far to say if the subcommittee answered all of these things, I think it'd be a win. And so I think this, you know, let's add to this where we need to about commercial and other things, but let's give this to them and say, these are the kind of things we expect.
That's all, we're starting with a strategy.
Yeah,
And then we can move to.
this is very well done.
Whatever thing. This is a combination of a lot of people's thoughts that have been out there on the internet in the last couple weeks, trying to consolidate it, so. And I think this is, it gives something as we, and I'll put it in this thing, this would have been nice to have in 2010, wouldn't it have been, Rolland?
Oh, yeah,
Would have been great.
great.
But we went through this whole phase of where we didn't have the time, I say the time, we were so focused on just keeping the village afloat that now we're to the point where we can start looking at this stuff and going out.
I want to add to this, for anybody who's upset with the CMP, I think they need to come to these meetings and see how we're it's not just some outsiders telling us what to do. We are all taking part in this. We are creating the subcommittees to look at all of these things. This is not just some, you know, this is money well spent. And we're here to represent you.
Paul?
Just to pick up on what you just said, this is a longer-term strategy. The 2010 CMP was a list of things we needed to do because we had some serious problems and we wanted to solve them. But it was so shotgun. And so let's take that over to the CMP. The CMP is now a strategy, or beginning of a strategy, not execution, not the mission plans. And so the same thing, you talk about strategy here, the same thing with the CMP. Now we have a strategy, and that's one of the big advantages.
Well, it's the result of the 2010 strategic plan. It called for
Took us
this
a while to
plan
get
to
there.
be developed.
But I called for this, and some of those things got done because everybody recognized there were problems, but it didn't go beyond that.
Right, no, I'm just saying that 2010 strategic plan called for the development of a comprehensive master plan. So it's 9 years later, we have it, but it's where it started, that's where it got its roots.
And I think the other thing to remember is that squeaky wheels tend to get the grease, and we have some problems that need to be solved, and they're somewhat urgent, and they become crises and all that. But we all know we should do the things that are important, the long-term plan. And I think the best analogy is health. You know, we all know that we're supposed to exercise and eat right, but we're feeling good right now, so there's no reason why we have to do it. But we'll pay the price in 25 years of the decisions that we made today, good or bad. So that's the important thing. And we have to keep our eye on the important thing for two benefits. First of all, who knows what's going to happen in 25 years? Well, we're setting the framework for that. But a big benefit of that is we could avoid a lot of crisis and urgencies. If we'll have the long-term plan and focus on what's important, we can limit the crisis and the urgencies and things that we fear, because that costs us a lot more money that we really should be investing in other places. So keep to the goal, and I think we'll be heading in the right direction.
Any other
Amen.
thoughts or comments on the marketing subcommittee and marketing, you know, the notes that we just talked about in strategy? Pam, do you have any questions, since this is gonna be you get the football here, so.
Pass it to me.
Okay, I want to kind of go out of order right now. I know we have some folks in the audience that are really interested in marketing. Does everybody understand, if you're willing, if you want to serve on this subcommittee, that it's not going to immediately jump to the plan? That we got to go through this first step to take it out there. So, anybody, I know, I see faces out there, you've communicated with me, type of stuff there. So that's kind of the key. We're not going to jump to, you know, a quarterback sneak up the middle. What's our strategy? our strategy is you're gonna run the ball a lot. You know, you may be the halfback, it may be someone else out there, but we really need to latch on to our strategy to say, here's what all those, look at all those questions out there, and can we honestly look at ourselves today and say we can't answer those questions?
Okay, from a practical point of view, if somebody here or otherwise is interested in being a committee, point them to the,
Would I,
There'll be an
Application,
yes, we
They have
need
to
to,
apply.
need to apply, that's its
We can start
official
accepting
application.
applications. Leslie, can we start accepting applications?
It's your committee, it's y'all's committee.
We can
Yeah.
accept applications, we just won't be able to appoint them until the charter has been approved.
And I would say the applications are online,
Yeah,
it's really easy. If you don't, you can also get one from, Ella keeps them in the office.
she does.
Ella has them in the front office in the POA.
Online, under the member resources forms, there's a form there for
Form,
committee
yeah.
applications.
Okay,
it's hard to find, but it's there.
it's there.
we'll add a link.
It's
Add a
under,
link.
yeah, it's,
Under member resources.
it's under member resources, governance, committees, and then the very last line on that whole list is applications. So you just have to really want to be able to fill it out to find it. But I
And
think
if you
that's
have
the
any
task.
questions, call Ella and she'll point you to the direction.
You know, the one thing, if I could just comment, since you kind of threw that out to everybody, that you can't just jump into the plan, is that these are all really good questions and a really good foundation. And they set the basis for anything that we come up with. We have to be able to substantiate why. Why is this good? Why are we doing it this way instead of that way? So there's a lot of underpinnings to this whole thing. If we choose, for example, why are we saying focus on current homes? Why? Why not the others? So I think that's going to be an important part of what we do.
I gave you copies of, so they did a marketing presentation maybe a month or so ago, a couple of months ago. And these are not all the slides, but these are a number of the slides out of that presentation that talk about the demographics, the percentages that we're currently spending in various areas, print, digital, trade shows, things like that. So it's just some reading for you.
So this was from the marketing presentation here in January?
Yeah, it's been a little while. Yeah.
But that's for our reference to, and Pam, for your subcommittee, probably a good, reference, just so everybody knows. Again, this goes back into knowing what our current, kind of plan strategy is. And I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of people have is where's all this come together out there. So, okay, any other questions? We still, if you last changes on the charter, we'll get some words to Stephanie so we can get that to Buddy so we can get through all the
Can we have a deadline on that? Can we please place a
I
deadline
would
on
say,
the?
can we have them by next Friday? Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that get to June, would that make it to the June?
Monday would be better.
Well, but it's not gonna make it on.
It's not gonna make it on the June meeting, so, I mean, the
We're
board
not gonna
meeting
make it
is
on,
next
yeah,
week.
board meeting is Wednesday.
Yeah, so it's
So
not
it
gonna
won't make
make
it till Wednesday's board meeting.
So if we can have them by the end of next week and get them to governance, and then July, they'll be able to have.
June.
them. Yeah, June, I'm sorry.
Yeah, June they get to the board to be
516
approved.
then?
Yeah.
I'm just the board liaison to this, but I think I need to tell you, this marketing thing is being highly discussed throughout the village and with the board of directors. We've got several on the board that may not be too happy about this. We got others that are really, really behind it. So you are gonna be under a lot of exposure, and I highly recommend that we don't waste a lot of time. Okay? This is very marketed, very, very
This is a hot potato.
needed right now for the village.
This is a hot potato.
Because our CEO has a statement that says, our marketing goal has been improve our sustainability by adding a sufficient number of new homes and visitors. That's what we've been doing. We need to do more. Okay?
Okay.
So, I know I'm picking on the practicalities here. Comments are due by the 5/16 to whom?
To Stephanie. Stephanie has the master of the charter.
All right.
Okay.
Can we circulate it by email, and then shall we just do a email vote back? And let's-
Yes, that's
to-
what
to
I'm gonna
move
get
this-
you. You can expect as soon as you get them in, that Stephanie can get them in that, the following week, I'll get an email vote out to you, that's the 20th, I think is Monday, so we'll sit down, if there's any questions, I'll get with Stephanie and
Let's get it done.
get it out there and get this charter so that the board can see it. And I will throw this out, and here's a question, I'll probably get shot by this. But anybody who's considering wanting to be on the marketing subcommittee, if you want to see the draft charter, we'll make it available on the 20th of May, as soon as we get it done too. So just send me an email so that you can see it. I don't want people signing up for something they don't really know what's going on, but I want to get the changes in, before we get it out there.
This has got to go from us to the board,
Yes.
to the, maybe we should share that after everybody's signed off on it?
Yeah, this is after the vote.
This is after the
After the
vote,
vote.
it's been approved,
Yeah.
and saying, okay, this is
Yeah.
what you're signing on.
Yeah,
Let me
that's
go
what I make it.
one step further. When I get it, it goes to the governance committee.
Exactly.
To make sure that it meets all the laws and all that kind of stuff. Then it goes to the board for approval.
In other words,
After
final.
the
Yes,
board.
sir.
Yeah.
So
Is
it's
it gonna have
after
to
the
go-
board approval, but,
Because
okay.
it's gonna have to go through new business in July and then old business in August, the final.
I think
uh,
so.
I think so.
So,
Well, then we aren't going to make any of their suspenses,
yeah, that's,
because Leslie, we ain't going to make any suspenses that you may want.
What I was gonna say is, since it's such an important thing, and actually we're breaking tradition and breaking our bylaws, because subcommittees don't require a board vote, but this is a really important matter, so we feel like the board should, since they're part of the state, part of the three-legged stool, and since it's an important topic for them, I'm sure they'll take it up just as soon as they're ready to take it up, wouldn't you say, buddy?
Yes, ma'am.
Nancy, you're.
Well, that's why I feel confident that once we get the vote and we all agree to this, to making it available to those people who want to see what they're signing up for. Because I don't want someone signing up for something that they're good at the charter they can't live with out there. And that's why I used today also to talk about the initial step of, we got to hit the strategy first before drilling down into to some of the plans. Okay.
I don't think it should be shared.
Any other
until
questions
after
on-
It's been approved.
It's been approved by us as a committee.
No, I don't think it should be shared until it's been approved. by
Well,
the
but
board.
we are open on a committee there, so.
So Keith, remember your charter says that you don't send anything out
Okay, well,
to a
I
certain
just.
time, so make sure you get to that right
Then
step.
how do I get to making sure people know what they're signing up for?
Could we just put the deliverable piece out, some of the
Yeah,
deliverables?
why don't
without
you
the
do
full-
bullet points?
Yeah, we can send it bullet point, which is
opportunity.
the deliverables is what people are gonna be concerned about.
Yeah.
I would say, please let the board have an opportunity to digest it before, it
Okay.
becomes something chaotic.
Okay, item 7D, the discussion way ahead of potential revenue growth subcommittee. So Buddy, you talked about budget and finance as a board committee, but we still have tasks out there for revenue growth.
Yes, you did.
So, we are going to be looking at forming a subcommittee and developing the same type of charter for a subcommittee here. So if you have thoughts on, the revenue subcommittee, please send me your thoughts. Good, you look in the book or in the plan there's some things that are identified as revenue growth. Some are identified as budget and finance, other ones are revenue growth, budget, finance. There's two different areas there. So any questions on the revenue subcommittee? Go ahead.
what, if we were going to create a subcommittee for revenue growth, what would we want as an outcome of that committee?
So,
Money.
We can make any decisions, we can just.
no, it's recommendations that go back to the staff first, because they're the ones who might want to put it in the budget, and also, you know, inform the board out there.
I would say, Nikki, I mean, you're gonna analyze our revenues, our current revenue streams, and do an analysis on how they're performing, you know, and Liz can help with that. And so when we talk about golf and amenities and, you know, water and sewer, those are revenue sources, assessments, et cetera. And then some brainstorming on new revenue sources, right?
And
So-
to be very honestly, you know, if you talk to folks, we don't have a lot of new revenue sources we might not be able to tap into right now. We may have to be creative. And that's what this subcommittee might have to think, some out of the box, you know, I hate the word, out of the box thinking, but how can we generate some new revenue versus just cranking up the water rates again?
And just better understanding the limitations of our current streams, right? So again, the assessment stream is on a major decline, has been for years and years, right? So we know that. How are we going to address it? What are we going to be looking at as an opportunity to move forward and be less reliant on that particular revenue stream, which happens to be our main one?
So I see a challenge here, and that is that if you want the marketing to go forward fast, fast, fast.
Yes,
I get
ma'am.
that, I get that, it's really important. However, if we're going to be talking about revenue, the marketing has to dovetail and address the forms of revenue. So how are we going to kind of work both of those together? No marketing plan can be created without understanding what the sources of revenue, where they're going to come from and what the expectations are. Because that helps us decide where to focus the marketing.
I think probably formulate it similar to what Keith talked about in strategy, right? Develop your overriding strategic goal there, and then you start to request the data, the backup that you're gonna need to fulfill the objective.
I think, Pam, here's how I would address this one.
Okay.
We are spending X amount of dollars today on marketing. It's hard for us sometimes because they're spread in different parts. And this is one of the things the subcommittee needs to go back and say, all right, when I put all these pieces together, here's what my pot is. I would build, the first start of the strategy would build it on that pot, because that's what we're spending today on marketing. And, you know, I don't know what the number, I remember, you know, 5 years ago when the pieces were in different pieces, when we put them together, we had X amount of dollars. So you build your first strategy on that with zero revenue growth right now. Just listen to me.
Yeah.
That gives you a starting point. All right, if I can get revenue growth, what's my kind of my spur strategy? If I can get revenue growth of $250,000 that went directly to marketing, how would that change my strategy?
Okay, and I guess I didn't explain very well, but that revenue growth, it's important to know where you expect that to come from,
Yes.
because that helps marketing decide what to target. If you expect that to come, for example, from new homes,
Yeah,
then we don't want to target
current homes.
current homes, correct. So you can't do the marketing in that kind of a vacuum without understanding where the revenue is supposed to be coming from.
I think that there's going to be several different paths that we're going to take, and I think it's a little bit of market segment, I'm just using that as an example. But as we identify others, I mean, some of them, just because you came up with an idea doesn't mean it's going to be viable. It has to go through a little bit of a sanity check to say, here are our top 3 ideas. When this committee, the revenue growth, I knew I'd get there eventually, areas, and we get it to the top 3, that's when I think that the 2 subcommittees should get together and say, okay, what it is. But up until then, I don't know if they have anything to talk to you about, unless.
That's my concern. That's exactly my concern.
Well, let's go back to.
I hear all of you, and if I might, to move this, it's gonna take some coordination. And I think what the chair is saying initially is, work with the pot you've got right now, and then, this isn't gonna be the last report that you create. And it's gonna take some starts and stops, but we'll get there through the coordination. But starting with, where are we now, and then where do we wanna be?
And it could be as simple as when we're at the charter for this new committee, that part of the reporting channels is liaison with the marketing.
Well, I think it has to be, definitely.
Okay.
Again, there's a reason the subcommittees report back to the overall committee. We all kind of work together on this. We're not out there independently doing stuff.
And we may have to meet more than once a month.
And that's what we've already talked
That's
about.
true.
I know we have, two of you will be off-site. One, Nikki will be
Next week.
moved here, so, but how we have the meetings, so you don't have to drive over and stuff like that. We've already talked about Skype and all this other stuff, those type of things. Okay, so I just want to throw out revenue growth type of stuff here, and we will be, saying the challenge of one of you being the revenue growth subcommittee chair. So, and I don't want to point to anybody right now, but boy, someone's a really good financial guy here, but just leave that at that. He's not acknowledging.
Self-proclaimed bean
He's chewing his gum harder and faster, that's what he's doing.
Okay, the last item is the initial discussion on deferred maintenance. Remember we talked about, some of our strengths and weaknesses, and one of the weaknesses was maybe how we talked about infrastructure in the plan. One of the bigger challenges is how do you define deferred maintenance? And here's how I'll throw these thoughts out about it. Maintenance, and it's deferred maintenance on all kinds of things. It's roads, it's the Coronado Center, it's an air conditioner, it's a roof. You can throw all kinds of stuff out. All of them have different thought process on deferred maintenance. It's when you go look at a road and say DeSoto Boulevard. We used to try to do so many miles of DeSoto Boulevard every year. It's 14 miles long. Okay, we were doing about 2 miles a year. So that meant, in my pea brain, we said the deferred maintenance on it's 7 years. Every 7 years you got to do DeSoto Boulevard. Every X amount of years you got to replace an air conditioner on the Woodlands.
Police car.
You got to replace a police car. What we would like to get is what is our real definition of deferred maintenance, so we can judge how far behind we really are. Because that's one of the tasks that we have, and there's to look out to say, what is the plan for the infrastructure? And if you don't know what deferred maintenance, you can throw out there $45 million, or you can throw out there $5 million, because it's based on the definition. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about here?
So the
Yes.
number that we've been throwing out, is there any, I think we've heard at all the meetings and all that, is there anything behind that? Do we have any breakdown of what that
Well,
consists of?
they've done some work on that. They've done some work, but not to probably the level we need to have done. Go ahead.
Just to start with, there's capital and there's routine maintenance.
Yeah.
And those two things are quite different and funded quite differently. And I guess we can decide which category each of these fall into.
And so we may have a different definition. I look at, we have deferred maintenance on the Balboa Club. Anyone want to argue with me? Have they been in the Balboa Club recently? There's got some deferred maintenance on it. Okay, was that fall in routine maintenance, or is that falling in capital type of thing? We have to have those kind of discussions. That's why the definition of deferred maintenance may have different categories in it.
I agree there's gonna be different categories, and maybe some of them are gonna be labeled urgent, because if the roof's leaking, you can't let the building fail with water coming in. So I think, one will be category of urgent.
I was thinking that maybe we could take his homework of doing a little research on deferred maintenance and some of the things, and be prepared to discuss it next time. Because
I think there's a lot of different strategies and all that, all of, you know, what kind of maintenance are we doing? And if we could group it into buckets, what we want, because then we can say what we want to do. I think that the end question is good. How far behind are we? But that's, I think we need to have, I think there's going to be categories involved and priorities and strategies and all that kind of stuff. Yes.
Yeah. This goes back to way at the beginning of the meeting about resources. This is a topic that I think, you know, we can think about all we want, but until we get the real numbers and go through section 5, which is kind of a nightmare, almost line by line, I don't see how we can comprehend what the ultimate answer to these.
I think one of the things, back to your education early on, there's a gap in what the understanding of the community about what deferred maintenance means, and when people speak of it, what are we talking about, right? How are we defining it? When you get a list, is that the right list? You know, I mean, are those actually deferred maintenance items? And I think that's what we're attempting to do, is define what.
We can define it, but I think ultimately we have to quantify it.
Yes, and that's the next step, that's the next step. We gotta get a definition down of how we're gonna, to say, when we open up that table and say, all right, this one is deferred maintenance. This one is not deferred maintenance, but if we don't have a definition down, we just group stuff and say it's all deferred maintenance, and that leads back to your question about what is the right number, because we haven't defined it.
It's a bit like infrastructure, not understanding, right? But is infrastructure just what's under the road and your streets? No, you know, it's building.
We're getting, with this, we're getting pretty deep into the Public Services Committee's business.
I understand. We've been asked to give us I mean, that's why I kind of look back at Murray.
I look at Murray and say, not to put you on the spot, but has the Public Services Committee done any of this legwork that we could start?
Well, have they even talked about what deferred maintenance means?
No, not really. But Jason recently, since we did the work on the CMP, has done a lot of work on it. I think as Nikki said, what was your term? How big is the pot? What we really need to be looking at, in my opinion, is how do we catch up? How do we get back to a normal, preventive, predictive, whatever you want to call it, maintenance plan for the key components of the infrastructure?
Well,
and that's what Jason, you've heard him talk about culverts. How do we get caught up? And he's got a 3 to 5 year, prioritized plan on culverts.
Well, and this leads back to, we're trying to define it, get a definition.
You're trying to get to a number.
We're not trying to get to the number, we're trying to get to the definition first,
Okay.
because I don't think.
Well, I got this one off the internet,
Yeah.
so it has to be true. So, and this is right, yeah, it looks pretty close, right off Wikipedia, and this one made a lot of sense to me. Deferred maintenance is the practice of postponing maintenance activities in order to save costs, meet budget funding levels, or realign available budget money.
This one describes everything that you just said, but it adds in the practice of postponing maintenance activities such as repairs on both real property,
I left out the
i.e.
such as.
infrastructure, and personal property, i.e. machinery, in order to save costs, et cetera, what he said. So it did put them into at least two things that you can see. You can see real property being infrastructure. You can see personal property being machinery, like a car that you pay tax on. But I don't know if that's a kind of a...
I think what they're looking for is that definition, but a little more scoped out. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, they're looking at like a road, when does a road go into deferred maintenance? Is it?
Well, the usable life cycle, right?
It's the usable life cycle.
Asset.
Yeah.
Some things you
Right.
operate in failure,
Yep.
some you maintain very, like a big motor, big engine, very, an
But
airplane.
do we have that laid out in a definition that Jason can say, all right, I look at the Coronado Center roof and say that's went into, because it's past 12 years, or whatever type of stuff.
And again, it's not just Jason, it's Gary and
I know,
Golf and
yeah.
Spacing Recreation. And
It's everybody
that
to
has
look at and give
anything.
them so that we have that next level of the definition to say, here's how we're judging our deferred maintenance. Because it's really easy to go back to the tables and hit sum, and you get this number, and it says, we have $45 million in deferred maintenance. Well, deferred maintenance for a road is different, and I'll leave it in, deferred maintenance for DeSoto Boulevard is X amount of years. Deferred maintenance for a residential street is something different, because there's even a difference in there. You know, you start looking at our road structure. Deferred maintenance for a heavy use facility on an air conditioner may be different than deferred maintenance on a facility that doesn't get used as much. So can we go that next level in the definition?
I want to see if I understand something. So I understand that this is on the agenda, and I do understand it, but I think I'm going back to why are we doing it? And I think the reason is we need something to help in better decision-making. Isn't that basically why we're
Yeah,
talking about
which
this?
is, if you notice when you read the plan, that's one prioritization tool that didn't exist, is how to prioritize infrastructure projects.
Yep.
Others were in there.
And this ties directly, because you could go look at all these infrastructure projects that we have and say that this one truly is deferred maintenance, because here's what our definition of deferred maintenance is.
So for our next meeting, you want us on the committee to report back to you with our thoughts on how we classify them.
What I would like you to do, and I hate to put Murray on the spot, but Murray is our public service guy, is to send it to Murray and let Murray kind of capture it. And then Murray comes back next meeting and kind of give us, here's what we think. And you can run it across your guys at public service.
Yeah, you bet I will.
But see, he's a good focal point for this definition, because they're the guys who are going to be dealing with it. So everybody's, you know, if you got thoughts on this, let it to Murray, then, you know, Murray, if you work with your guys too, to say, here's what a definition would be, then we can bring it to committee and hash it, bring it back to this committee, and hopefully work it through. Does everybody understand that?
We focus on the deferred component of it, you know, in this one particular, and I think it's a good sentence. Maintenance and repairs that were not performed when they should have been. It's not everything that needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's what we didn't do when we should have, because we were
Yeah.
worried about making payroll, or we were worried about some other, you know, financial situation. Focus on the word deferred.
Deferred.
It's not just everything needs to be done. It's what we didn't do at some point in time that we should have been doing.
Would you read that one more time?
Well, this is from the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board,
Yeah.
but it's maintenance and repairs that were not performed when they should have been or were scheduled to be, and which were put off or delayed for a future period. I mean, it's
Because otherwise,
deferred.
we're just
I mean,
coming
it's-
up with a reserve.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're looking at what?
We got stuff, and I'll use culverts as the perfect example. We deferred maintenance on culverts for a long time, and how we've been fixing culverts to catch up on culverts. We've been taking it out of the road fund, so we haven't been doing stuff to some of the roads.
Those the two definitions that you use were kind of forward-looking, in the sense that we're setting up a program and we're gonna formally defer this, and we're doing this because of this, but we're really backward-looking, because it's been going on a long time and not in an organized manner at all.
Well, but the key is, we've never really defined it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to step back and refine it. That's what we've been asked to kind of do, and this will give the infrastructure, as we, down the road, there will be an infrastructure subcommittee, because we have a lot of tasks for infrastructure to look at. But this gives them a starting point to say, all right, this is the priority.
Well, again, in your charter, in your charge to inform the budgeting process, this is a really important piece. Us having a clear definition and understanding of what it is we're considering deferred so that we can catch up is how we're going to prioritize our budgeting.
Okay, so, I see that as an agenda item, the next one is deferred, you get to report to us.
Yep.
And then anything else that needs to be on the agenda the next time?
Anything new that anybody can think of? I think we're gonna have enough kind of discussion to circle back around on some of these items. Just so folks kind of get a feel for it, you know, we've talked about, we'll come back around with probably revenue growth again, talk about that, we get a little more issues, a little bit more definition there. Hopefully marketing will have launched, so we can just, if there's any updates that Pam can get back to us, that we've launched, and we got people that submitted, you know, those type of things. I don't see them having a big piece of, you know, to hang on that one.
You want to finalize the mission statement?
We'll have to finalize the mission statement. I would also, we're going to circle back around, we'll kind of go back over the SWOT, just one briefly, not take as much time. Here's where we kind of, just so something jumps out at you that, hey, you know, we go there.
Homework assignment to work on goals and kind of go by email so that we can talk about that next time?
And would you send out the mission statement, kind of that was sort of
That's what
crafted,
it-
yeah? So would you send that out so that we can?
Let me add to that, if we need to explore, if we need to meet more often, we need to find a way that we can meet over the telephone
Yeah.
or internet so that we don't have a quorum problem and we stay in the loop.
Well, that's what we're talking Skype.
Yeah.
There is a capability up in the POA headquarters, in the conference room, to Skype.
I've used that before, it's
Yeah.
good. And my office is set up for it, so.
Okay, so you kind of get the feel for where we're going. So just to give you kind of a heads up down the road, next time we will talk about amenities. Kind of, that'll be a kind of question, because down the road we're going to have amenities subcommittee. And we're going to talk about a land use type of subcommittee, because if you go back and look at a lot of the recommendations, they deal with kind of a land use type of thing. Some of them got pushed to this, aside because of some of the other things. Some of them are due to the court case going on, may not be, but there are things that are land use, and I'll use as an example. One of the recommendations there is take an area out of service. We need to look at that. That's where the land use folks would come into play to say, yeah, this makes sense, and here's the things, da-da-da. We're gonna take such and such a neighborhood out of circulation. And,
The suspension strategies that are noted in
yes,
there.
suspension strikes, but that's where the land use type of stuff, subcommittee would be one of their tasks out there. So
And know
again,
that we have, there's an awful lot of GIS data that supports this document that was prepared by the consultants that's obviously not in there because it's huge. So on suspension strategies, et cetera, that identify those lots that were marked at least preliminarily.
so you just want to give you a figure. We're looking at right now 5 subcommittees down the road. Kicking off with marketing, because that's where we're getting to push the most, and we need to get on with revenue growth, kind of get that one stood up. We'll look with, infrastructure, land use, and then an amenity one. So, because there's a lot of things talking about amenities out there, so. Okay, I've taken 2 hours of your time. We'll go around. Anybody have any questions or comments? I'll start with the 2 distinguished people at the end there, our liaisons.
I have nothing.
John Sowers started talking about him, didn't you, John, huh? Distinguished person. Okay, is he always, lit up there? Okay. Okay. Stephanie? Pam, any questions? You know where to find me. You'll hit me over the head at the next GAP meeting or something like that. So, what'd I get into?
I'm good, thank you.
Clint?
I'm very impressed with this group. We're moving forward.
Tom? Murray? That's your task. So.
I do.
Jody? Patricia? Nikki? Okay. Folks from the audience, any comments? Jack? You know, you can still come back. Okay.
No, I got something I want to give you. First of all, I sent you some marketing
And I
comments.
sent it to Pam.
Yeah, and Pam can have those. I'm not a marketing expert. That's just an outside look.
Yeah.
And what I did there was just simply get online and say, okay, what is a person outside that's not a village owner right now? What do they perceive our village to be? And that's why I did that. And when you look at the internet, you'll see what people, when they look up our village, what they see in ratings. And that's why
And your name, sir, is?
Jack Reeder.
And he's on the architectural control
On
committee
the
too?
ACC, yes. I in particular would rather talk about one thing and ask that you review a recommendation of mine. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. I worked at this for a long time, as these two people will tell you pretty soon. Who's familiar with critical path method management? Okay, I spent a lot of years doing this, and that's one of the things that would be very, very beneficial to this committee. We're sitting here talking about, you started the meeting with 271
Recommendations.
recommendations that have to be reviewed and tracked and planned and organized and everything. Critical path management scheduling is absolutely the best thing in the world for this. I personally have managed projects of critical path management of 50,000 activities. You can put anything you've talked about here today in critical path management. You can schedule it, you can budget it, you can prioritize it. You can do everything that you talked about here and are worrying about in critical path management scheduling. And it's not very expensive. I mean, I think a single user on a very good program is like $3,500. Train one person.
We may have people already trained in that.
Yeah, I mean,
We've got
this is one thing that I
professional project
would.
managers on this committee.
We got 2 of them right
And
now.
now we got 3.
Good, yeah, so,
Would
I
you
mean,
join a group doing that?
that's one thing I would,
Would you like to be part of
sure,
that?
I would be part of that. That's one thing that I could really lend some help with, I believe. But I prepared a little thing here about this. I did ask this question before the CMP was voted on and approved. I have sent it to the board. I haven't got much reaction at this point, but it's something now that I think would be very beneficial as a tool for this community, for this committee to use. And whether this committee owns it and operates it, or whether staff does that, doesn't make any difference. It just puts down everything that you're talking about in a written form. You can do everything with it that you want as far as scheduling, budgeting, etc. Take your culverts, you can list every culvert in there. Have an estimated price for fixing it. You could put dates in there when you want to do it. You could work your budgets all out that way. I mean, it's very, very powerful. And
Jack, I would ask that Nikki and Rolland are going to be kind of doing our program, management piece. They're the right people to kind of to talk to.
And we're
Well, I'll
gonna
just
talk
leave
a couple-
this
we're gonna
with
talk
you.
a couple minutes after this, if you wouldn't mind staying.
sure, no, that's fine.
Thanks, Jack. And
You
thanks
bet.
for the stats there too. And then, Pam, you got all that stuff I sent you
I
originally.
did, yes.
But it kind of gives you an idea why people are coming.
This is what I read.
Thank you, sir.
Linda, what's up?
One thought here is I know there's a lot of questions and an understanding of where this committee is going and so many variables. But the one thing I didn't understand is why would a marketing committee have to be connected with you when in reality the marketing itself could move right ahead and not be controlled by this committee or any relation to it. I don't understand that.
The first thing off is that in the CMP, it made some specific recommendations about marketing. And what we found is to look at those recommendations, that falls under our charter to look at that. We've been asked to look at that as well as do work to stand up. What Pam's effort comes up with may be, we've given her the strategy task, but down the road, something may change. I'm just leaving, I'm saying this is what the task we've received from the board, and we will march out on our task. So, and that's why we're doing it under our auspices right now, is because it does actually fit under us, but if somewhere down the road changes are made, then we deal with the changes. I will use it just as an example of budget and finance. There's recommendations. This committee now will be grading the Budget and Finance Committee in reality, because there's recommendations that we will look at in this big 271 number and say, trying to kind of say, here's where they moved along on budget and finance. We won't be actually having a subcommittee to work budget and finance. So it's
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm gonna focus on one word that you used, controlled. At least I'm envisioning the subcommittee is supposed to do the same thing we are. We advise. So I don't think the purpose of this subcommittee is going to control anything. So, and again, maybe I'm just parsing words, maybe didn't intend to use that particular word.
We provide, again, yeah, you hit it on the head there, Tom. We're advised, we provide our best advice to whoever we're supposed to provide. Again, it goes back to the three-legged stool in that we, just as we're providing advice to the board and to the staff, we're informing, but it's really advising the property owners too.
Let me add to that. First of all, thank you for coming forward. One of the problems, I've researched some of this, one of the problems, we could have a fantastic marketing program that literally brings in 100,000 people. We don't have a place to put them. We don't have enough hotel rooms, we don't have, but that's what the committee is here to help with, is how do we get this together? So thanks for coming, and we're working on it.
Well, and I appreciate everybody here. It takes a lot of thinking in your mind to bring up all the alternatives, and I really appreciate that from everybody. One of the things also that brought my attention was Jody and her understanding that she is here on behalf of Mr. Cooper. And in that respect, it is the legal ramifications that in going forward, I think she has a good understanding, and I hope that everybody understands that too, because if you get into the plan itself and all of a sudden, oh, we can't go there, we can't recode the village, we can't do all these things that it has been understood that there's a new urbanism plan, so to speak, underfoot. And I don't know, you all don't know where the comprehensive master plan did come from, but it's out there, and there's a lot of people that have understood that, and maybe we are informed or misinformed, but it's there. So from a legal standpoint, I think that Jody has come and presented a good case for when you get down the line, please remember that there are certain things to think about.
Okay. And Linda, that's why I brought up there's a lot of stuff in that plan. And you kind of jumped, you said the new urbanism word, and that kind of goes back to a very small segment of all this other stuff.
And it goes back to education.
That goes back to education. That's what I hope to do, and that's why we allowed it to be videotaped, and we're trying to be open. We don't want, folks, there's a lot of other good things that we need to start moving out of.
Well, and you mentioned a lot of good things.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to do here.
appreciate
We have
that.
we're a brand new committee. This is our first really meeting, and we'll have everything done by next meeting, and we'll just call it.
And thank you for letting us stand and speak. We appreciate that.
Yes,
I'd like to comment.
hi, Ron.
My
And your name,
comment,
sir? Ron T2.
my comment ties in with the critical path suggestion. What you have to do is, when you technically picture your flow chart, this whole thing. Here's where we are, the start. You have to define your end goal. You haven't really discussed that at all. What is our end goal? Now, the 271 points that you talked about, Keith, they are steps to get to that end goal. And when the gentleman talks about critical path, this is deciding what has to be done first, and then second, and then third to get to that end goal. And all these other points, we'll say 271, all play a part to get from here to there. But you do have to define your end goal first, so you all know why you're here.
Well, isn't our end goal to get to so many houses in 10 years?
That's just one portion of our goal. Our end goal is, it's gonna be,
To make the,
it's gonna be, I mean, where you look at your end goal, it's just,
No, it's just,
it's, you know, it's a broad thing, it's,
It's a viable, self-sufficient community.
yeah. I mean, that's, yeah, how do you define a viable, self-sufficient community? You know, you could say that you talked in previously, you know, if we built this community out at 50%, we'd be busting at the gills. If you we got 34,000 properties, you built out to 50%, we'd be busting, there'd be people complaining on DeSoto. You know, it would be a 4-lane on DeSoto, if not pressing more than that on DeSoto. But yeah, what our type of end goals, and I think some of it goes back to our current goals, is to support the enterprise goals, because that's what the board has given the direction as our enterprise goals. So our end goal right now, if I had to say right today, Ron, is to support the enterprise goals, and they're pretty, home and apple pie type of goals, but that's what our current end goal is, to support what the board has told us as enterprise goals.
But does everybody know what those are?
Well, that's a hard education,
So you really have to define what is our end goal. And that's, all the other steps lead up to that end goal.
True. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, Marcy?
Hi, Marcy Ramel. Just asking a question. I'm currently on the board. They're discussing creating a finance committee and a marketing committee. Is that or is that not a duplication of services?
Well, find it, yeah.
And also, what's going to happen if they are able to create those committees? How are y'all going to coordinate that? Because you're having a finance committee, they're having.
Here's Keith Keck's take on it, buddy. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you.
The board will and has or will create a finance committee. That's an agreed upon board activity.
Charter has been written.
Charter's been written. We still have the revenue growth portion of it because it's different. When you go into the plan, there's some budget and finance type of things, and there's some revenue growth. So we will still own the revenue growth. That's where I kind of look at Tom here as our budget guy or our numbers guy to potentially be on revenue growth. Okay, let's go back and look at marketing. Yes, there is on the board is different opinions on marketing. Right now, the board has given us the task to work the marketing as a subcommittee here. If we receive different direction from the board, we will do what we need to do, and if it's handed off to a marketing committee under the board, then so be it. Pam, she may go and you'll be part of that too. I don't know. That would be something. But today, at this point, on May 10th, at 15:05 or whatever, we are moving forward with the subcommittee, and we will march to the direction of the POA board and the 7 members there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Caverly.
Oops, if I can stand up. I was going to say I would get with Pam on marketing. You spent a lot of time about marketing, and you talked about strategies. There's a whole lot of things that come before strategies, and there's a bunch of things that come after strategies. I spent 35 years with 3M doing international business development and marketing. I'll give her some help wherever she wants.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from? That's like, hopefully for the folks that we thank you for your attending. I know maybe some of the marketing folks thought we were going to jump right into boom, 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 but we got to start and work our way through this. Again, if you have any questions, we have an email address. That's the CMP advisory at HSV.POA. It's on, if you go to the internet, you can send us a note. I get the emails and I'll farm it out and listen. Type of stuff there, but there is a separate there. Thank you for attending. Our next meeting will be on June.
Second Friday.
What's your name?
Second Friday, whatever it is.
Yeah, second Friday.
Yeah, and the next one is scheduled at the Woodlands.
Okay.
Or the Pond Center, where we held the first meeting. They're all scheduled there, but they had like 3 conflicts. This was one of them, and there's 2 others, and that's why you got multiple calendar invites, because there was a couple changes.